now that I have you all here, I wanted to ask a couple questions about men's versus women's prison. And the first one is, what were the TV shows that everybody watched ad nauseum?
So I wasn't ready to throw down over getting my way to watch TV, so I just didn't watch TV ever.
Okay.
I don't know. In jail, Supernatural, and Family Guy.
Okay.
So in jail, we only had like 5 channels. So it was TNT, and that was really the only watchable channel. So, it was Charmed, Supernatural, Bones, like the whole lineup. And then in prison, at one prison, I never even walked by the TV because it was in a separate room and I did not hang out there. But then the other prison where I had to walk by the TV to get to my cell, it was 100% always BET.
Yeah, telenovelas were huge where I was. So, there would be a crowd of 60 people watching the telenovela.
Okay, because we had a race riot in the jail when I was there about BET versus CMT, so they took both of them off the TV. Then The Price is Right and TMZ, and I watched Supernatural. I thought it was great, but The Price is Right and those shows and the stories, oh my God, there'd always be that one dude who didn't have a TV, who wanted to watch soap operas, and somebody else would try to put it on sports. He was ready to fight. He was ready to mess you up over missing his stories.
Wait, so you had communal TVs and people had their own TVs?
So there was one TV in each pod or housing unit or dorm, and then everybody could buy a TV if they had it, but not everybody had the money to buy one.
That is
we
not
couldn't
how
buy
it is in the
TVs.
Feds. You could not buy TVs. We didn't have tablets, nothing like that. There was one TV per side of 180 people. So
Insane.
survival of the fittest. If whoever the lifers could
We had
watch
one
what they
TV
want.
for 60 or 90 people, but we couldn't. The men can buy TVs at some facilities, but none of the women's facilities have TVs. I know, right?
Because they want them to be docile, because otherwise they're stabbing each other, and then they don't give us TVs.
Fair, yeah.
So one of the other questions was,
I mean, we should be stabbier.
We should be stabbier.
We need to stab
The
more.
guards would degrade us less.
So speaking of men's and women's prisons, I get asked a lot about shaving. How did you get razors? Why would they give you razors? That seems dangerous. But you guys had not only razors you had to contend with, but also period supplies. So how did that work in a New York State prison and a federal prison?
So when I was in, and some of this has changed since then, but when I was in, they would give you a bunch of pads every month, and that was it. You were not getting tampons. You could order them on the commissary, and for a lot of people, that was not enough pads. The other big issue was bras. For women that had big boobs, that was just those bras were insufficient, and you did not get them frequently enough.
Where I was, we would get pads. They weren't exceptionally rationed. We could get extra from the orderly, and that's what was free. And then you could buy tampons on commissary, and those were about $6. So people were choosing between making 2 phone calls home to their kids and buying tampons for the month. And I always thought that was super messed up. And one time they ran out of pads. They were running out of pads and toilet paper constantly. There was always
toilet
ordering
paper was
issues.
a big deal too.
But then one time they ran out of pads at the same time that they ran out of tampons, and a guard told me to plug up with toilet paper. And I wrote FAM and my senators about that, and then I almost got sent to the SHU for agitating.
That makes sense.
We had toilet paper was a big issue where I was, because if you went through the 5 rolls a month, and it's 5 rolls a month of single ply, obviously, it's not like you have access to napkins and paper towels and shit. And if you went through that, you were just not getting more. You can use your towel, you can use a magazine, you can use a newspaper, but they would just not give you more. So people would get robbed for their toilet paper all the time.
Super common.
I've definitely seen women offer guards sexual favors for more toilet paper, and it didn't always work even.
Did they give the men the same amount of
Yes.
toilet paper?
Yes, exactly. Isn't that fucked up?
And then razors. Yeah, we could just buy razors on commissary in prison. It wasn't that big of a deal, so we could shave.
It varied by facility where I
in
was.
the jail though? Because when I was in the jail, you got a razor 3 times a week for an hour. You had to sign it out. It was a little orange razor. It would scratch it face up, and then they would check it when it came back.
We did in the jail, because they would wake us up every morning by coming in and screaming, razors! And I was like, this really sounds like a suicide suggestion.
The first jail I was at for a year, absolutely nothing. No razors. We
Really?
had clippers. And they would only bring out the nail clippers and the clippers for like an hour or something every day, and like we're all trying to like cut our bangs. Girls are in the shower like,
Yeah.
and then somebody else is like touching it to their face to cut their bangs.
Wow.
And so everybody just had to like grow their leg hair out there. But then the next jail did like the razor call thing. I lost my razor one time, and they were
Ooh.
like, "You're gonna go to the hole. You find the razor." That was one of like the scariest things. That was one of the closest times I ever went for going to the hole for punishment was over a damn razor.
Yeah, there was one facility I was at where they would let you had a razor and you kept it, but everybody got like one issued razor that you changed out every so often, and they would do random razor checks, and it was like such a trap, like because if you can't in that moment immediately produce your razor, like you're going to shoe.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was a different facility that would have razor hours, where you go and you get the razor from between like 3 and 7 or whatever, and then you have to bring it back by the end, which is I think just much more manageable.
But then it was so shocking to me because I went from the jail where the same thing, they lost a razor one time. They brought in the strike force, tore down like every pod looking for this, never found it, like it was a big deal. I go to prison and the first thing I see sitting on my sink is just a stack of razor blades.
On my second night in prison, we were all crowded out of bounds in this one girl's cell. She opens up a box. She has a straight razor in it, like out of an X-Acto knife. And I'm just like, what? And she just uses it to make arts and crafts. That was her hustle. I have no idea where she got it.
Yeah, we had a guy, I remember he'd gotten it stolen from the wood shop, and he had it sitting in his cell, and the COs knew he had it. It was like an X-Acto blade.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a hell of a weapon, and they would walk by and be like, hey, what are you doing? I can't remember his last name, but like, what are you doing, so-and-so? I'd be like, oh, I'm just doing arts and crafts, just doing popsicle sticks. And I was like, bro, like, you have a weapon. In the jail, they would have freaked out about a little orange razor blade.
One of the worst things that they ever like called the goon squad in for when I was in jail, they didn't issue us cups. So like every time we needed to drink water, we had to stand up and walk the 50 feet to the drinking fountain. But they would bring, every meal you could get a cup and fill it up with juice that came in with the trays. But then they would count the cups at the end. And one time there was a cup missing. Clearly somebody was dope sick and thirsty and tried to keep the cup. And then, the guard's like, we're 1 cup short. Return the cup. Nobody returns the cup. They called in the gun squad over a cup.
What the fuck are you going to do with a cup?
They said, well, what if you throw urine on a guard? But get this. You could buy a different color, same size plastic cup on commissary for $7.
That's insane. The only thing I've seen like that is in jail. Did they ever mess with you guys about like sporks or plastic sporks? Because in the juvenile center, every time I go in there, they have a little white plastic spork, like the cheapest disposable ones, and you have to count them on the way in and the way out. And if somebody tries to keep a spork, they used to go to the hole. Like you go to the hole for keeping a plastic spork.
Washington County, they just issued you a plastic spork, and you had to like wash it and keep it on you. But no, that's wild. What are you gonna stack?
I mean, especially they're like super like weak ones. Because in the prisons, they would sell a spork on commissary, but it was like bendy and it wouldn't hold up. But you could get the spork from the chow hall, which was like the solid orange one that would do anything. So we would all like go. They would come during shakedown, take all the orange sporks, throw them in a bag, whatever. Then we'd go to the chow hall the first day off of lockdown. Everybody would take back an orange spork. They'd search you trying to find it. We'd all have one. And eventually it was like, why not just give everybody a spork, which they finally did during COVID. Because we're like, all right, bro, we don't have time to deal with this anymore. Like, everybody gets a spork. Like, spork for everybody.
Sporks for all. In prison, I think they gave us plastic spoons and knives with our meals. I don't know.
There's one facility where they did that, but there's another one where they gave us metal utensils.
What?
And it was like a big deal leaving the mess hall. Like they had a guard there, and you had to they had to see that you had all the metal silverware back in, and then if there was anything missing, the silverware count at the end. Like obviously that's a problem.
I mean, they would put like 6 guards outside of the chow hall, just like standing there, checking people's IDs, randomly patting you down to see if you're like taking out an apple. And I was just like, God, they're paying so much money. Like we're short-staffed already. And then they're staffing 6 people here to like make sure I don't have leftovers so I'm not hungry before I fall asleep. Excellent use of resources.
And that was the prejudice I saw, because they would have shakedown lines outside of the chow halls at the prison I was at for 13 years. And every time I would go out, you put your hands up, they'd pat you down. but I was like the nondescript guy. They were like, oh, we don't have to worry about him. So they'd always just give me a cursory pat down. So when I started making apple pies, I would tuck my pants in my socks and load like 30 apples in my pants. And they would just be like, oh, you're good, Crossing, go ahead. And the guy behind me, who is genuinely hungry and is doing nothing wrong but bringing an apple, they're going to like search all of him, find his apple and be like, we find another one. We're going to give you a charge. It's like, bro, this does not make any sense.
We always had to find the girls with the big boobs.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say. You
Put
make
it in
fun
the
of me for
cleavage.
pulling shit out of my
Yeah.
boobs, but like people did that for Thanksgiving to smuggle like full Thanksgiving meals out to the rec yard so that they could have dinner with like their prison family. Like you got bitches pulling like chicken and turkey and shit out of their
But you know
bra.
why that's funny? Because, okay, there were always, like, fat guys people wanted for carrying cell phones because they carry it in between their ass cheeks or under the folds of fat.
Yeah.
But we had these two trans individuals who had boobs, and everybody used to get them to smuggle stuff because none of the guards were going to touch their boobs. So they would have drugs, they would have phones, they would have all kinds of stuff just sitting in the bra in between their boobs, and they were untouchable because nobody would go near them.
Oh, that's not
One time in jail, like I always kept like contraband pens in my bra because they just gave us shitty pens, and I really like having good pens. So I keep the contraband ones in my bra. Went to visit, totally forgot. Like I come back to get searched, and like these pens just start falling out of my bra and shit. Then the lady that's searching me is just like, I don't want to deal with this. Just take your pens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that pen thing, because they give us the flex pens, and we would like wrap them with envelopes so they were sturdy, and then they're just like always searching our shit and acting like they just found drugs. Like, oh, what's this? Yeah, that's a pen with paper wrapped around it. Great find.
It just amazed me. And that was the same thing. It was the security level thing. Like at the level 4, you could only have security pens instead of regular pens, and you could only have the short toothbrushes. So everybody was rigging up like paper wraps for the pencils or for the pens, and then wraps or popsicle sticks for the toothbrushes. So I can have popsicle sticks, which I can glue together and make an actual weapon out of, but I can't have a regular toothbrush. Like this just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they didn't let us have dental floss in the jail. They thought we could like make rope out of it, so I didn't have floss
Yeah, I don't
for
think
2
we did
years.
in jail either.
We had
but
the
we
little
did in
flossers.
prison.
That was all they would let us have.
Oh, we had those in prison,
Okay.
but in jail there was absolutely nothing.
I was still so strung out in jail. I don't really remember anything. But
No,
by the time I got to
I
prison,
was
I
in
started
jail a
worrying about
long
dental
time.
welfare. I mean, that's a good point. So I was only in jail for 10 months, and then I went straight to receiving prison. How long were you in jail?
2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how about you?
10 months.
Okay. And that was the standard when I was there. It was like 10 months to a year, sometimes shorter. But now I talk to guys who've been in the jail for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
No, I was the second longest person there out of males and females by the time I left. Like 10 months was an extraordinarily long time.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you all for talking to me about men's and women's prison and for being so joyful and fun and for, all the things you do.